Coach Gundy joins us now. So just a couple of days prior to the TCU game, Tylan Wallace goes down for the year with an injury. Now you've had an off week. How much did the timing of the off week help you in terms of sort of reevaluating offensively where you go now that you don't have Tylan?
Well, we were very fortunate. We had Dylan Stoner that we could move over to that position and give us some experience in that area. And since then, we've moved some other guys around a little bit to give ourselves a chance to be as effective as possible. On short-term notice, Dylan's really the only answer. Now that we've had some time, we can bump some guys around, and I think the best thing that the offense did was stick to the plan in short notice, but now make some adjustments on what we think we can do to move the ball and score points without him in our offense, because we relied on him so much on the perimeter, getting him one-on-one.
What do you think has changed defensively the last 2 weeks?
I think they're coming together as a group. Honestly, I think Coach Knowles is learning more about this league. We're in a transition on what we're doing defensively. It can't happen overnight. I know people outside the program don't understand that, but it just takes time, and then the players have to understand what we're trying to accomplish. And I think they're getting a little better. We've worked really hard in pass rush, and I think we're getting a little more pressure on the quarterback than we were a month ago. And that's helped play into our hand over the last few games.
You faced Kansas this weekend, and interestingly, a little over a month ago, they made a change at offensive coordinator, and it seems like since then, they've had some really good games on offense. Texas, for example, Texas Tech, another example. What's changed from what you know with the new coordinator and what they're doing offensively?
A little more tempo, more vertical play action passing game. The running back's a good player. Quarterback's playing good. I think he's a senior now. He's been around there forever. But they're play actioning, stretching the field vertically. They're getting a lot of big plays in the passing game down the field. And then their running back is effective. So we really got to wrap him up. I mean, a number of people have bounced off of him. He gets a lot of yards after contact. Got to wrap him up and get him down. The quarterback's played good. They haven't made a lot of mistakes. In the last game, they turned the ball over a couple times, but prior to that, they hadn't had a lot of turnovers. And we're seeing in this league how important the turnover margin is. No matter who's playing, week to week, it usually determines the outcome of the games.
You were the offensive coordinator for Les Miles when he was head coach at Oklahoma State. And now, of course, he's the head coach of the Jayhawks in his first year. How did he influence you as a coach?
Well, he worked hard in the running game. That's his background, and he understands offensive line play. So I learned a lot from him during that time. Even when I was the quarterback coach and he was the coordinator, before he came back as the head coach, we worked together. So we do a lot of the same things now that we were doing when Coach was the head coach. Just a different way of doing it, more spread. A lot of it looks kind of like what they're doing now. His background was tight ends, moving tight ends, shifting, motion, and they're not doing much of that. But we learned a lot of offensive football, particularly running game, when he was the head coach here.
It's the Cowboys in Kansas this weekend. Stay with us. Brandon Weeden joins us for the Showdown Breakdown in a moment.
Whoa, that's crisp.
Crisp taste, brewed with no corn syrup. Bud Light.
Josiah, how you doing? Dominique, Nadia.
What if I go into labor in your car?
Why do I keep self-sabotaging myself?
Parts of science can be kind of confusing.
Really?
Thank you, honey.
So Joe's on the beatbox.
You haven't asked for my advice, but I'll just offer it.
You were so great. 4 stars, okay?
Living with joint pain. Take the first step at mercy.net/cowboysortho.
This is a Showdown Breakdown with former Cowboy quarterback Brandon Weeden. So let's start here. We've had a bye week. And now it's been more than 2 weeks since Tylan Wallace went down with a season-ending knee injury. Of course, he's Oklahoma State's All-American wide receiver. So now we're 2 weeks after the fact. How do guys react mentally now versus 2 weeks ago?
Well, I think you start with, one, they've had some time to reflect on it. They went out and played really well against TCU, which was probably a confidence boost for those guys, especially in that room. When you lose a player like that, that's a challenge. I mean, those guys you can't really replace, so the whole next up mentality thing, that's more now than ever. And, I've been yelling for Dylan Stoner from the rafters for a long time. I think he adds, his size in the middle of the field. He's a viable target, catches the ball extremely well, got a lot of experience. And with the way these defenses are playing coverage, I think he gives you a threat in the middle of the field, which I've been saying they need to attack for weeks now. So he stepped up big time against TCU, played well, and so those other guys. So it's going to be a test for them. They're going to get more and more challenging each and every week.
So as opponents were watching Oklahoma State early in the season, they were very focused on Tylan Wallace as they made their preparations. So now for opponents, Wallace is no longer part of the equation. How does that impact them? Is there anything strange psychologically that can happen as they prepare? Does it really matter?
I think, as far as your coverages, I think they may change a little bit. I mean, now you have Chuba Hubbard, which is, in my opinion, should be on the short list at the Heisman. He should be in New York City. But teams are going to be so focused on him and stopping the run, especially Kansas. They're giving up 235 a game. So they're going to do something to get an extra guy in the box, maybe some more pressure. But without Tylan, you can't have two guys over there doubling them all the time, so you're more susceptible to big plays in the run game. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Do you add another guy in the box and try to play more one-on-one coverage? I think teams are going to continue to do what they've done against Oklahoma State all year and play that split safety coverage and try to be a bend, don't break type defense.
And speaking of defense and really bending but not breaking, that's what the Cowboy defense has done the last 2 weeks. And they've forced 7 turnovers the last 2 games. So what's changed? I mean, Jim Knowles talks about he's learning the rush 3, drop 8 system. His players are learning. What have you seen that maybe has changed the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think it starts with he's getting an understanding of his players. His players are getting an understanding of the system, so they're more comfortable. It's kind of a two-way street there. But most importantly, I think this jumps off the tape, and it really shows on Saturdays is their effort. They're flying to the football. They're relentless, And I think you watch college football across the country, there's some pretty bad tackling. And the game is played out in space, on the perimeter. There's a lot of one-on-one tackles we made. And last week or 2 weeks ago against TCU, they've done a pretty good job of tackling. I think it was, in my opinion, one of their better tackling games of the year, maybe along with K-State. But, again, just effort. They're playing hard. They're flying the football, and they've really bought into what Coach Knowles and that defensive staff is wanting to do.
So this week's opponent, Kansas has had some nice performances. Just a Texas last-minute field goal, actually last-second field goal away from winning in Austin. They beat Texas Tech in Lawrence. What do you see from Kansas as far as matchups that could be concerning?
Yeah, I think, they got 2 really good receivers. Parchment and Robinson are playing well. They've got over 500 yards apiece. So they're doing some good things, a lot more explosive plays maybe than the Kansas teams of the past. Carter Stanley's playing well. He's taking care of it, throwing 19 touchdowns. He's doing a pretty good job back there. But in my opinion, it starts with Puka Williams offensively. He's their guy. He's their big play guy. Not the biggest guy, but he sheds a lot of tackles. His yards after contact is pretty good for a smaller back. But not only that, he's on the first team, all Big 12 name team. I love the name Puka, So he's a talented player, a lot of fun to watch. Played a lot of ball in this league, and offensively they've kind of found their way. They're not there yet, but they've made a lot of strides. Especially from last year.
So it's the Cowboys in Kansas at Boone Pickens Stadium at 11 a.m. on Saturday. For Brandon Weeden, I'm Dave Hunziker. Thanks for watching this week's Showdown Breakdown.